Views expressed by Casters Guild members are only the opinions of that member, and that could change from day to day. Guild members may use mature language, but that in no way means they are mature. Listener discretion is advised.
We're halfway through October and Halloween is getting close. What scary games are these geeks playing to tingle their terror bones this spooky season? That's the spell we're casting tonight on Casters Guild. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Casters Guild. I am your guild master and member of Raccoon City Stars, Rick Perry.
And I am your guild master, Baron Scaredy Cat Kane.
And joining us again are two returning guild members. Feel free to introduce yourselves.
I'm Kat Seguin, also a Scaredy Cat, mother of monsters and Twitch streamer. Glad to be here.
T-Virus, TJ Kirshner. Happy to be a part of this group talking about one of my most favorite genres of gaming, horror.
And it is the season for it. I have to say, I just picked up my pumpkins. I've picked out my pumpkin carving pattern, and I'll be getting started on that this weekend. So let's go ahead and start with the same question that we did all the way back in season 1. What are your favorite horror games? And we'll go with a video game, a board game, and a TTRPG.
Okay, well, I'll start. So on Tuesdays, I play horror games and I talk about what makes them scary, or not. But my favorite game has changed. My favorite one has been The Medium.
Okay.
I think I hadn't played it by this time the last time I was on, and it's super good. Much more subtle horror than some of the other games that I played, and a lot of personal resonance there, which I can talk about in a minute. But then tabletop, but not board game. Okay, so board game is the legacy version of Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's an amazing game. We've only gotten partway through the legacy version. I love it. I could play it for the rest of my life and be happy. And then for TTRPG, for horror, I didn't get to play it, but I got to record it for a podcast years ago. It's a short little game called 10 Candles. Written by Stephen Dewey.
Ooh, yes.
Yes, it's very good. It is extremely dependent on player buy-in to make it horrifying. And by golly, we did. It was really
awesome.
I'd say you guys had me hooked on that episode, too.
It was so good.
I was doing laundry while listening to it, and I stopped. I stopped everything and just sat in front of my little speaker and listened.
You're just enraptured, like, what's going to happen? Mm-hmm. How is this going to come out? And the recording at the beginning, where they're like sending messages to themselves. I'm like, oh, it's so good. It's so good. So Stephen Dewey wrote it. Let me give you a quick search to who publishes it, in case anyone is interested in picking it up. I like it. It's one of those really easy cavalry games. 10 Candles, a candlelit role-playing game of tragic horror. And it touches on one of my favorite flavors of horror, which is tragedy. So, to me, so along with The Medium and parts of the legacy version of Betrayal at House on the Hill, good, honest tragedy makes for better horror. I won't say it makes for the best. I love tragedy. Some people can't deal with it, but tragedy makes amazing horror.
So I bet then when the ending of The Village probably made you pretty happy then, how everything came together. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody that hasn't finished it. No?
I didn't watch it because I have a hate-hate relationship with that director.
Yeah? Oh, okay.
I hate his stuff. I hate it.
Wow. All right.
M. Night Shyamalan, as my friend's dad calls him.
That's fair.
I think there's merit to
I meant like Resident Evil The Village is what I meant.
Oh, Resident Evil The Village. So you said The Village.
Totally different village, and I was just like, what is she talking about?
No. So
I honestly didn't know who the director of that video game was. I was like, that doesn't sound like his kind of forte, but okay, I'll go with it.
The video game director that I would punch if I ever see in person is Hideo Kojima. He needs somebody to say no because he makes amazing mechanics, and I hate how he treats. I hate how he treats women. Hate how he treats his stories. But the end of Resident Evil: The Village was so good, but it hit different when we got to the fish boss, and we realized it was a black comedy. A small spoiler, at one point, the giant fish man leaps out of the water saying, "I'm the best!" And we died laughing.
Mm-hmm.
We cracked up. We couldn't make it. Like, we had to pause. It was just, oh my god. We were like, this is a black comedy. That's what it is now. Like, it's a well-made game. It's an excellent execution. But it is a black comedy.
Resident Evil will always have at least that one voice line per game that will crack you up every time.
You were almost a Jill sandwich.
It's definitely my favorite of the Resident Evil series, bar
It's
none.
so good.
It's
Did you see the
so
announcement
good.
today? Did you see the announcement today? So they're doing an expansion. Yeah. There's good DLC expansion. They have like a couple of multiplayer things coming out, which I'm like PvP, blah blah blah. But they have an expansion dealing with Rose, which is
that's
only
what I
a
was
spoiler
thinking
if you
they were
played
going
the
to do.
game.
Yeah,
It's only a spoiler if you've played. But it looks like it's going to be pretty good. They're going to lean more into the weird science. Totally not magic.
Okay. All right. I don't know.
I think it'll still be good. Like, the Resident Evil games are solid, and the remake for 4 looks like it's going to be amazing. It looks like they're really just totally revamping that. But to go back to what I was talking about tragedy and horror, one of my friends writes horror, and they and I just click in terms of when tragedies. Like, I've seen a couple of episodes of the TV shows they've written, and I'm like, oh, that's sad. You wrote that sad part, didn't you? Didn't you? Yeah, so like tragedy and horror are, you can have one without the other, but they're like peanut butter and chocolate. They're so good together. They're so good together. I love being sad and frightened at the same time.
I'm going to have to think about that more now, because I never really considered the tragic element of horror very much. For me, but what I really enjoy in horror video games is survival horror. I want to feel completely vulnerable. I love stealth. I love being able to hide from my enemies and jump out and surprise them, or in this case, not. Run away from them, hiding, screaming.
Okay, so a game that I've been playing on my channel recently that I think you're really going to enjoy is the remake of Siren, Blood Curse.
Okay.
If you haven't played it, it's available on... So, it is a pain in the ass to get. We tried... So, you can technically stream it from the PS5 network. Don't. There are some time-sensitive events that you're just going to have to... It's impossible. It's impossible to really do. But if you can get a PS3 version, do it. It is a survival horror with... You can carry one object for a weapon, maybe, if you are not the child, because the child cannot fight the monsters.
Okay.
Your best bet is stealth. Everything is very tense. Now, mind you, they do have escort missions, so I don't know how you feel about escort missions.
If it's a good AI, if it's well done,
it's
not
decent
so
AI.
bad. I definitely don't like it, but I mean, I've been in some video games where I'm like, okay, it's not so bad, and I've been in some video games where like, I just want to kill this person. Let the monsters have them.
These are about 50-50 so far.
Okay.
I've only played through the first couple of chapters, but there's 12 episodes. It's very good. It's just a little dated in terms of not execution, but like how you're expected to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of one-hit kills and like restarts, not a lot of checkpoints. Like, they're expecting you to dedicate a lot of time to this game, which has made it tremendously stressful to play on stream.
I bet.
But there we are. So I highly recommend Siren Blood Curse, because I tried playing the original Siren. It's bad. Really bad. Like, would you like to be in submenu hell along with contextual menu hell, where there is no item recognition whatsoever? Is that your kind of game? Would you like to do that? No. Nobody wants to do that. So
that sounds scary, but not my idea of like fun horror. Thanks.
No, I think you'd probably like Siren Blood Curse.
Okay,
it is.
I'll have to look it up.
mature.
I'll have to dig out my PS3. It's somewhere. I think we still have a PS3. But yeah, okay, cool. All right, I'll go ahead and go next. My favorite horror game, video game, I would probably say is Fatal Frame 2. I love the Fatal Frame series. As some of you know me well enough how much I play Fatal Frame. And my second one is definitely, bar none, my favorite. for our listeners, I'll tell a little bit of a story of why it's my favorite. When I was in college, there was at least one or two Halloweens that I was still on campus. I commuted to and from school through public transportation. That was fun. Horror within itself.
Tragic.
Yeah, but quite. But I decided to stay at my friend's dorm. And so they have like a little student activity lounge in the dorm area. So we kind of took it over. And we took down his PlayStation. Actually, no, it was an Xbox. It was an Xbox 360. Hooked it up to their big screen TV. I want to say it was like a 65-inch, really nice LCD TV. And played Fatal Frame on Halloween night with the lights off all night long. And we were terrified. And I loved every minute of it.
Click.
Yup. What's even funnier is I took Japanese when I was in college too, so we were both in the same Japanese club playing a Japanese horror video game, so we get all the references as well. Afterwards, we tried to play a round of Uno just to kind of calm ourselves down before we went to sleep that night. It didn't work so great. But that was so fun. I played the first, I played the second, I played the third, I think if I remember correctly, I specifically jailbroke my Wii so I could play.
I was about to ask if you played the fourth.
I did in its Japanese with like a fan subtitle mod that somebody did. I was that dedicated.
Sure.
I wanted to. It was so much fun.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Did you get to play the fifth one?
I did. I tried to play it on the Wii U, but the Wii U, I couldn't enjoy it. I didn't like having to move my controller around, trying to that be the camera. I just wanted to play a normal third-person point-and-click kind of game.
It didn't feel very scary when I played it either. It felt very actiony.
It was. It was a lot more actiony. It felt like it lost a lot of its kind of grime to it.
I feel like they were less trying to make a new Fatal Frame game and more trying to make a really good tech demo for the Wii U.
Yeah, that's a very good point. A very good point. So I hope if they ever do another one, I hope they go more back to its roots, bring back the creepy folklore, the ambiance and everything. Tabletop, it's a tie between two different ones. I mean, Betrayal and House of the Hill definitely has a big soft spot in my heart. Because it's never the same game twice. It's just so a variety, and it has its own creepy elements and so much strategy to it. And you don't know if you're trying to help people throughout the game, trying to help them collect the stuff and explore the mansion, but you're also not sure that once the haunt suddenly starts, are they going to be the ones now that are going to betray you? But either that or Fury of Dracula. I really, really enjoyed the Fury of Dracula when we played it together.
Who made that one?
I'd have to look it up. It's somewhere behind me. Yeah, I've only played it a handful of times, but it's cooperative, but not. You basically have one person who's Dracula, and everybody else are vampire hunters. And you're essentially Dracula is trying to escape the vampire hunters, and they set traps. And as they move throughout Europe and whatnot, you can, like I said, leave like thralls. You can do combat against the other vampire hunters if you encounter them. It was a really, really fun game, so I definitely one I would love to play again. And
it's currently in its 3rd edition, and it is put out by WizKids.
WizKids, okay, thank you.
And then TTL, I really enjoyed the City of Mist when we played it. That one charity stream that we did, that was a lot of fun too. Assuming the different characters' roles, and definitely one I would absolutely pick up again.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, even though I completely butchered its rules.
Oh, you did? I didn't notice.
Like, it's supposed to be a whole lot more player-driven than I made it. For anyone who listened to that and is listening to this now, that game is much more player-driven. It's just, I have been in Dungeons & Dragons DM for so long, it was very difficult for me to flip that switch. When I do run more player-oriented games now, I think I'm better at it than I was. I think that was my very first time, so I don't beat myself up too much about it, but I did butcher the rules to that game a little bit.
Okay. Well, we all enjoyed it, so that's
Chop
what matters,
them up until they fit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Rad, what's the element between those games that you really like? Like, is there sort of a link between them that, like I mentioned, tragic horror?
Well, for video games, this is the survival horror. For tabletop, I like strategy. I like thinking through my moves and being really meticulous.
Its own form of survival.
Maybe. I do enjoy really good storytelling. So Dread was another one, TTL that I was considering, but I kind of wanted to give it to something more that I played more recent. But I do enjoy a really good narrative. So those are kinds of things that can kind of. That's one reason too why I really like Dungeons and Dragons is I love a great story. I love great characters, well known characters that you can kind of get attached to. And then tragedy rears its ugly head when they die in a dungeon because you pissed off the DM. You've never done that before, right, Rick?
No, never. Baron?
I'm sensing tension. What
Uh,
about you guys?
So I did the typical Casters Guild thing, and I did 3 favorites.
Ooh.
But we'll just kind of fly through these. So we'll do video games first. I'm gonna go with Little Nightmares. Is probably my favorite one.
That's a good one.
Did you like the sequel? The
I
sequel
didn't get
prequel.
to finish it. I didn't get to finish it, but I do like it.
It's good.
It's essentially just a continuation of the same game for
Yep.
me.
Yeah, I felt that way a lot to me too. I had a hard time continuing it. It's on my shelf. I'll finish it one of these days.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Worth it.
Next is 7 Days to Die.
I think I've
and
heard
then-
of that one.
Yeah, 7 Days to Die is a survival game where it's just it's a zombie apocalypse, and then every 7th day there is essentially a blood moon, and just mass hordes go out. So you have to build up to survive the 7th day, and then if you survive it, it goes on to the next day or the next week, and yeah, and then finally, some people may not consider this a horror game, but Subnautica.
Some parts of it, oh
I
yeah.
was gonna say some parts of it for sure. Yeah. Okay.
And then we will go with board games. Arkham Horror is probably my top one, mostly because of the work I had to put into it to understand it.
A
Fair.
labor of love.
Yeah.
Fair.
You're the protagonist that overcame. That's the
Right.
the kind of horror you are.
It took me, one other guy, and a few YouTube videos to really get it. Well, once we got it, it was like, oh, this is, as long as everybody's working together, this is pretty easy. But, yeah. And then next is Atmosphere. I don't know if you ever heard of that. But
No, who
it
makes
is
that
a-
one?
We actually went pretty in depth to it season 1.
Oh, brilliant!
That was the VHS. I don't know if you remember, Kat, the VHS horror game.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I played it. I played it for the
hearing
first
about that.
time when I was in the 3rd grade under the name Nightmare instead of Atmosphere. Yeah.
Yeah. I still have
Oh,
it.
apparently it comes in DVD now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they did a
oh.
re-release.
Yeah, I see an Amazon link here. Pressman
Also-
Atmosphere interactive board game with DVD.
The original VHS playthrough is on YouTube.
Yes.
Oh, dip.
So if you
yeah.
can just get the board and everything like that, like if your VHS tape is worn out, you can just pull it up on YouTube and play it that
Your
way.
VHS tape is worn out. Nothing. Who's got a VCR?
Oh, I'm sure you
have
can find one at thrift
I
Of
have
course,
store
you have a
somewhere.
VCR.
But yeah, I remember.
And a tube TV that'll play it.
So I was thinking that actually adds to the element of horror, like the old VHS effects of the lines.
Scan
on the
lines,
screen and-
yeah.
See, I know how to adjust those scan lines. I still remember how to work a VCR. Back in my
Nice.
day, I learned how to fix those.
I worked at Blockbuster. I had to know how to do that stuff.
Fair.
Yeah, I remember earlier this year I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw like the Atmosphere re-release. Like I think it was on Kickstarter at the time. Like they were kickstarting the re-release. Yeah, they've done a re-release of it. It looks fantastic. I didn't pick it up, but now that I'm talking about it again, I was excited then I forgot about it. Now I'm thinking about it again. I might pick that up. I might pick up the re-release.
So I have it, the original, still, and I have the D&D one because they have like a fantasy one too. So
All right.
yeah, that should be. I'll have to break those out at some point. And then finally, this is probably my favorite horror board game. It's Dead of Winter.
Oh yeah, that's a strong one.
Love Dead of Winter. It is up there with one of my favorite board games. Yeah, it's beaten pretty squarely by Red Dragon Inn, but it's still up there.
Rad.
And then TTRPGs. I'm just going to start it out with, well, there's 4 of these, but there's 2 World of Darkness games. One,
Ew.
Werewolf the Apocalypse, and then Changeling the Lost, which is the new World of
Lost.
Darkness.
Yeah.
Changeling the Lost is great, and it fits in my old World of Darkness stuff. There's, you know what?
He's
Guild
gonna
Decree.
do it.
Guild Decree.
Oh, right.
Changeling the Lost is now canon with the old World of Darkness.
Love it.
Damn.
Changeling the Dreaming out, Changeling the Lost in.
Ooh, brutal.
Yeah,
I like it.
It is law now.
That's actually
Love
that's a very. I'm glad I saved that one up.
In order to play Changeling the Lost, now you don't have to pretend that the apocalypse was a good thing.
Nice.
And then there's a game probably not a lot of people have heard of called Little Fears. Little Fears, you play little kids who have to face, like, you know, the boogeyman in the dark corner. Not literally, you know, the boogeyman, but this is not a cutesy game. This is a dark horror game. But the kids also kind of have the ability to use their imagination for stuff to protect themselves. It's really good. Really good. And then, old classic, Call of Cthulhu.
Brilliant.
Call
Love
of
it.
Cthulhu.
I keep crashing into that game, and I like it, but I keep crashing into it. The last time I played a character that was so psychically unaware and so dumb. She was a social boob. She had a lisp, and it wasn't from the fact that she was born with it. No, she got it when she went face to face with an American bison. It's not a buffalo, mind you. And she would just talk and talk and talk and talk. But she went up against this room full of evil psychic crystals, and everyone else is on the floor going, ah! She's going, I don't see what the problem is. No, these crystals are funny looking.
I've only played
awesome.
Call of Cthulhu twice. Once I played a Navy doctor, and the other time I played a bounty hunter who was in a romantic relationship with his shotgun.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
He would talk to her, he'd go to bed with her, like she was his wife, and he loved
Yeah.
her.
I actually went to a convention one time, picked it, and they had it scheduled. We decided to play. My character lost his fucking mind in the first half of the game.
That sounds like Call of Cthulhu.
Like, I should have lost the character, but I convinced the guy running it to let me play it out.
So you could be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs the rest of the game.
I tricked the entire party into sacrificing themselves to the creature in the lake.
No.
That's called Cthulhu, baby. That's awesome.
And they all voted for me for best role player in that, and I got
Oh, yeah.
like a Arkham Asylum pint glass.
Oh, that's wonderful.
that's
Very cool.
Oh, that's really cool.
That's rad. I love that.
It was great. It was great.
Damn.
Oh, also, honorable mention, it came from the Late 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 Show.
Ooh, who makes that one?
This is another old game, but it's based off of...
What are you doing to me, man?
It is based off of, you know, those late night horror action...
Oh, those late night, the sexy television where people are getting sacrificed and the blood is like orange juice with red dye.
It was originally published by Stellar Games.
Are they still in business?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not. But my buddy still has it, so I could always run it if I wanted to.
You lucky duck.
Yeah. Yeah, it's looking... Oh, gosh. It was published in 93. Oh, you can get it for $50 on Amazon.
That's not bad for an RPG core book.
I mean...
Oh, I
yeah.
found it on a used bookstore for like $36, $37.
There you go.
Oh, no, that's the sequel.
But yeah, if you can, I'm actually seeing that there's some YouTube videos of people playing it. I'm going to watch these because they are hilarious.
I love it.
We did an action one, and my dude was like a kung fu detective, and someone was smuggling drugs, but they were smuggling them in hamsters.
Oh no!
Well, at least that's what
as
we
you do.
thought they were doing. So I was trying to find the drug hamsters by taking the hamsters and rubbing their little butthole over my gums.
So you can see if there was cocaine in there.
Wow.
Yeah,
So, like you do.
those poor hamsters. But, I mean, that's what the game is. It is just stupid, and you do stupid stuff. It's so good. So
Sounds
good.
absolutely up my alley. I'll see if I can get a used copy.
Honorable mention. Perfect.
Love it.
It came from Late Show 3?
Damn.
Oh, I see. They did Adventures. That's what it was. They did.
Okay.
Okay,
Sounds like
Baron.
Yeah, what's up?
You did yours a little different.
Do it.
Uh-oh.
I will also be doing mine a little different.
Do it.
Because up front, I got to tell you, mine did not change from season 1
Oh, really?
at
Okay.
all.
Okay.
So I will tell you what they were for anybody. So that way, anybody listening doesn't have to go all the way back to season 1 and listen to that episode. I will tell you what they. Yeah, I will tell you what they were, and then I will tell you all the ones that are knocking at the door for my favorite. All the ones that are getting really close. They don't quite overtake them, but they're getting really close. So you'll get 3 new ones anyway.
Oh, can we do a round of that too after you do that? The games that are contesting for our hearts.
Yeah, almost there. Almost there.
All right. So for video game, my favorite of all time, favorite horror game of all time is BioShock. It was during season 1. It is now. For being a quote-unquote action game, that game does understand isolation and horror just in general.
It's a good balance.
Right. The one that's knocking at the door would be Metroid Dread.
Ooh, yeah.
Aww. So I was scared at first, but then I wasn't feeling the dread as much. I mean, it was still a ton of fun. Don't get me wrong. I thoroughly enjoyed that game, but towards the end of it, I again, it's that point of it's disempowerment that creates the horror for me, and the more powerful I get, the less horror that I'm feeling. So by the end of the game, I had plenty of power ups. I knew what I was doing. I knew the paths that what do they call those bad guys that were like the super powered? What is they?
Emmys.
Emmy. Okay.
EMMI.
Those robots.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I struggled against the first one and I stopped playing.
Oh yeah.
I'm not actually good at video games. I like playing them. I'm not good at them.
If you get caught by one of them, the quick time event is very hard.
It's next to impossible.
Once they get their claws on you.
But it's supposed to be
hard.
like that's intentional.
Yeah.
Like that's not. It's supposed to be next to impossible. It's supposed to be once they get their hands on you, like it's over. So that's actually, you bring up a good point, because I do have a unique relationship with horror where disempowerment is the normal way to do horror, but empowering me doesn't end horror for me. Even if I can take care of the threat, I'm still scared of it. I've said it a bunch of times on this podcast. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is facing fear anyway. So even though I have the power to face that fear, it doesn't end that fear for me. It's why BioShock, honestly, BioShock is an extremely empowering game, but it's still one of my favorite horror titles. And when it comes to Metroid Dread, I 100%ed that game. So you want to talk about power-ups, I had them all. But still...
Thingamabobs, I've got all of them.
So, one of the arguments I can make in favor of your empowerment doesn't necessarily destroy horror. One of the things I've analyzed on my channel a lot is where the line of game and horror is. Because there are a lot of lines that you can draw in horror gaming. And one of them is complete disempowerment versus complete empowerment. And where you draw that line matters, but it also matters in how you're telling the story. So, in your example in Dread, you could have been as powered up as you wanted to be, but you still feared for your character's life. You still recognized that you needed those tools in order to continue through the game, which is why you still felt like, shit, I could die. This is tough. This is scary. This is tough. This is scary. Whereas a more disempowering game like Fatal Frame, for example. So Fatal Frame 2, Fatal Frame 3, you can technically kind of power up the camera, but you've only got a camera. You don't have, I just started playing the Ghostbusters game, by the way. It's rad. You don't have a proton pack. You don't have a ghost trap. You don't have teammates that are helping you. But you get a little bit of empowerment, but the fear is still about what the character is going through. And I think, that's a great way for horror to resonate with the player. You can have, you could do Castlevania style where you're just like, you're already awesome, you're just getting more awesome. And like, if you still fear for the character, like when you have those QuickTime events with the
Emmys.
With the Emmys, those QuickTime events will kill you. It doesn't matter how powered up you are.
Mm-hmm.
They'll kill you. They're a one-hit kill. Well, okay, but they're murder machines. And that is a great way to maintain a horror aspect even as you're powering up. You can be as strong as you want to be, but if that Emmy gets you, you're dead.
Also, I won't go into it too much because it is spoilers for the game. But to tie it back to something you were talking about earlier, when it comes to Samus Aran in Metroid Dread, you do get the tragedy as well, which goes really well with the horror. So
excellent.
It had some of the best storytelling, I think, in any of the Metroid games up to this point.
That's what my husband was saying. So Ryan plays a ton, way more video games than I play. The ADHD is strong with him, but he will just knock out these games, and he will absorb the stories lickety split if they're really good. Mm-hmm. And Dread was up there for his top Metroid game for a while. I can't remember if it's still up there, but he loved it. He was like, "Holy shit, they put story in here, and it's good." Because all the other Metroid games, like the
story's in the background. Samus. You have to read the manual to get the story.
Right, you're Samus. Go shoot aliens. Got it. But Dread, I'm really pleased that Dread they were like, let's put a story in here. This sounds good. Let's do that.
Also, I've also argued between the two games that genre is named after Metroidvania. Castlevania always had Dracula and mummies and skeletons, but Metroid was the horror game. Castlevania is the action game, but Metroid is the one that understands, once again, isolation and feeling alone and fear.
It's funny that you say isolation because it's based entirely off of Alien.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had a chance to play Alien Isolation yet, but it's definitely one of the games that I want to. I want to, and I want to do it on stream. So
I have played it through twice and on stream too for Extra Life. I loved it so much. Yeah, again, the survival horror. Gotta hide from the alien. Gotta pick your hiding places. You only have this motion sensor, and the motion sensor isn't perfect either. It's only giving you like a general idea, and sometimes it's very inaccurate to give you any idea of where the alien is. You're very much listening, very intently. I love that about the horror games too, where I'm listening very closely to my surroundings. Like the sound plays such a massive aspect in horror games.
You would have been gotten by those old school videos, the ones where they're like, "Watch this beautiful sunset." It's lovely, calm, and
jump scares.
Those got me all the fucking time. I hated it. Anytime someone was like, "Watch this video," I'm like, "No,"
nope.
And that protected me. That protected me from getting rickrolled. Like those ghost pop-up videos.
Look, there for a while, you had to turn down every single one of those videos because you're either going to see something scary like a pop-up, or you're going to see something that you'll never be able to unsee again.
Yes, or sometimes both.
Or both.
Yeah, I'm not even going to go through the list. We don't need our listeners Googling. No. Mm-mm.
No, bless you, no. Just be grateful you did. If you're younger than we are, just be grateful you didn't live through that part of the internet. Just.
Yeah, I'm glad we kind of got past that as a society.
Yeah.
For the most part, I
most part.
I'm sure you can still find that stuff on the internet, but you have to be looking for it now.
See, what we have to do now. I don't have a TikTok, so whoever has a TikTok has to do this, where they start these calming ASMR videos. And then they do the jump scare.
Oh, there's a whole filter for it on TikTok now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've got the ASMR nails.
Mm-hmm.
Look at these bad boys. I've got the ASMR nails. I have a very nice ASMR whisper, and I can make you very comfortable. And I can be just terrifying. I'm not great at this. I'm not great at the jump scares.
Yeah, that's the thing about the filter. You can start any kind of video you want. The filter does the jump scare for you.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so they do exist.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I've already promised my followers that they're safe from that stuff on my TikTok. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. I don't have one because I do too much otherwise.
Right.
So.
I just watch the TikToks. I don't do much myself.
If somebody sends me a link, I'll watch it in the not actually TikTok app.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll watch it in the browser. I'll be like, oh, that's great. One thing I hate about I promise it's the only gripe, and I will cut it off there. But I hate how loud everything is. I hate how loud they record their audio. I hate how loud the music is. Hate how loud it is. Otherwise, they're great. Bite-sized humor. Love it. That's my bitch about TikTok.
I was a fan of Vine because it's the best potty app.
Yeah.
Yes!
It's the best potty app. You go in, you sit down for a little while, you can skim through a few videos, you're like, you know what? I'm satisfied, and I'm satisfied. Just leave.
Wow.
All right, so board games.
Speaking of
task at hand.
So my favorite and the one knocking at the door, just to clarify, these are technically both horror games, but neither of them have ever scared me. My favorite, just like it was last season, is Betrayal at the House on the Hill, and all of its ancillary games, Betrayal at Boulder's Gate, Widow's Walk, the expansion, Betrayal Legacy. Love them all, except Scooby-Doo. It's great. It's a great little kids game, but like they really dumb it down for the kids.
That they could have just. I haven't played it myself. I don't know anything about it, but that's depressing because I mean Scooby-Doo. That's like the quintessential of like silly horror.
Look,
like, you could have played that up so much.
The game is very Scooby-Doo. Like if you are a Scooby-Doo fan, it is still worth playing, especially if you can play it with your kids. And you can play it with little kids. Like, if your kids can watch Scooby-Doo, they're old enough to play Betrayal Scooby-Doo. It's just...
I might have to pick that up, then.
I never thought of myself as a Scooby-Doo fan, but with all the new Scooby-Doo material coming out every couple of years, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's a good show. It's very nice. But, like, I keep thinking, I think I actually really like Scooby-Doo.
Just in general, when it comes to
how much you get turned on to different things when you have kids. Like,
I don't even have kids, and I'm just a big kid. I'm just like, Scooby-Doo is great. Like, it's fun.
Just in general, if you're sitting down to play a game with your adult friends, like the mechanics of that game are just very dumbed down. It's not your standard Betrayal fare. Like, they made it very easy. But the one that's knocking at the door for me is actually, for the same reason that Betrayal is my favorite, is because if you have some friends over and they've never played board games outside of, Milton Bradley, Betrayal was always a good one to break out because you can teach them how to play as you're playing, and you could always have a good time with it. And this game is the same. It's Mysterium.
I love Mysterium! Oh, God, that's such a fun one.
Yeah.
Such a fun... It is a great game to figure out who your actual bestie is. Because let me tell you, we were playing it, and it was hysterical because I found some very sheer fabric, so Ryan was the ghost, so I draped it over him, and he was very upset. But he stayed still for a photo. But we were playing, and it was my turn to be the ghost, and I was handing out cards so in Mysterium, for those who don't know, it's like, was it Dixit?
It's very similar to Dixit. Correct, yeah.
So, yeah, I was handing out, these cards, and like 2 out of the 3 people at the table were like, I don't know what you're trying to tell us. My bestie was just like, I have got this clue. I've got that clue. I know what she's trying to tell you with that clue. And so now whenever we're like, let's play a board game, she's like, let's play Mysterium.
Yeah, and if you played it a lot, you can always lean into some of the hardcore rules like it suggests in the box. If you've played it a lot, only ask yes or no questions about the cards, and the ghost can't speak. They only answer with knocks.
We always play with a non-speaking ghost.
Yeah. They can only answer with knocks, like one knock for yes, 2 knocks for no, and that's it, which is great.
You know how the Fox sisters did that? So let me step back 3,000 or 4,000 conversations. So the knocking and ectoplasm and all that sort of like spirit speak stuff was big in the late 1800s during the spiritualist movement. It was a response kind of to the Civil War. A lot of people had lost a lot of people and really wanted answers for how their loved ones were doing, and there was a lot of grief, and so there's a lot of spiritualism coming up. And there was this trio of sisters, the Fox sisters, who went around saying they could talk to ghosts. And they would do seances, and they would, spirit, knock 3 times. And the way they would do that was they would either use a utensil stuck between their toes, or they would crack their toe knuckles to make it sound like knocking. Like, oh, God, that's a lot. Like, I like a good knuckle crack, but still. And that's how they would make the spirit knock. Like, all their shit was fake. Like, the ectoplasm was just gauze that was stuffed up their nose, and they pulled out. Chairs moving, things moving was a lot of like sensory overload and stuff that sort of convinced grieving people that their spirits were talking to them.
Yeah, they invented the idea of the seance as people think of it nowadays.
Yep, absolutely. Ouija boards, fake. You have micro movements in your muscles that you don't necessarily register that aren't the same as reflexes, but there's micro movements in your muscles. I know, I'm here to ruin everything. She says wearing the Silent Hill seal shirt, I know this is a podcast, but y'all should know I'm wearing the Seal of the Metatron shirt from Silent Hill. I've got my coyote bones on. I'm drinking out of a skeleton cup. Like, I'm ready for spooky shit. The problem is, most of the spooky shit we know of came from the late 1800s. And unfortunately isn't real.
Shocker.
I know. I know.
I mean, it's all real, kids. Pumpkin Jack, oh yeah.
Do you mean
up there with
Candle
Santa
Jack?
Claus.
Yeah, I mean, so a game like Mysterium, I love that because it plays into wanting to understand, and it sort of plays into expectations, which... I'm going to argue is that expectations are also a big set for horrors, for horror games, horror gaming, horror play, horror stories. If you go into something expecting it to be scary, you're ready to be scared. It's easier to be scared.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going into something and you don't expect to be scared, then if it's very scary, it's very good. But, if you're going into it like, haha, this is a black comedy, it's going to hit you different. So... to give a quick example, and I'll let you finish. I went in to see the movie Nope, and if you haven't seen it, see it. It is so fucking good. Scared the shit out of me. I didn't know what kind of movie it was to be. Small spoiler: it is a creature feature. There is one scene that has stuck with me so bad. I have trouble falling asleep when I think of it, so I'll probably have trouble falling asleep tonight. There is a scene, again, spoilers, there's a scene where they go into people being digested. And that... Turns out I've got a phobia. Turns out I got triggered real bad. I was not expecting that. I was expecting a totally different thing, and just... It triggered, it like genuinely like physiological trigger. I was sweating, I was shaking, I was in tunnel vision. Like, I was there with my husband and 2 of our friends, and I was like gripping their arms like they were gonna fall off if I didn't hold on to them hard enough. I had a, like, when that scene ended, I had a flop sweat. Oh, it was disgusting. It was horrible. And I totally want to see that movie again, but I can't.
Yeah,
I didn't know what to expect. And I was like, okay, I'm going to see Jordan Peele. I expect something good. I expect something tense, because I loved Get Out. But
I
going
really
into
enjoyed the Quiet Place movie.
Quiet Place was so good.
Yeah.
And you don't know what to expect. Like,
no, and it's always so quiet. Obviously, the movie The Quiet Place, it's just nothing but silence. But it was just funny. I went with my wife, and you could just hear a pin drop in the whole theater. There's I never realized just how quiet it is.
Never has popcorn been so loud.
I was like, I don't know if I want to eat my nachos right now. Crunch, everyone looks at you, sorry. But it was so good. It just took a very unique concept that movies just doesn't really, not to that level, explore, and it just takes it to its extreme, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I think they're good. Are they doing another one? I think they're doing another one.
Yeah, they're doing Quiet Place 2. Don't know when that's
Quiet Place 2 came out a while ago. I saw it in theaters. It was the first movie after the pandemic that I went to see in theaters. I went and saw a double feature with my wife. We saw Quiet Place 2 and Black Widow.
Ooh, fun.
It's a weird
What'd you think?
combination.
I didn't like it as much as I liked the first one, but that would be a hard thing to follow up on in the first place. But I still thought it was really, really good.
Rad. I'll have to catch that when it comes to the streaming services then. I'm sure it's already out on those.
It's probably there. I mean, like if it was in theaters the same time Black Widow was. It's
you're right.
yeah.
You're right. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know where it's on. I have to take a quick look.
Oh, there's probably like.
Because I know Black Widow's on Disney Plus.
Yeah, well, I mean that's Disney, and then whoever made it, then you track that back to whoever owns that company. You know, because if it was like Miramax, then that's actually a Disney company, and it's probably somewhere on Disney Plus if you have the adult clearance, and if you don't have the,
It's on Netflix and it's on Prime streaming.
Excellent.
But apparently it's not available to watch on my country. Yeah, we are talking about games.
All right, TTRPG.
We're going to get through this list, I swear.
My favorite, just as it was during Season 1, is Dread. I feel like there is no other TTRPG where you have a physical manifestation of growing tension in the middle of the table like you do with Dread. As a matter of fact, I'll be running a game of Dread using giant Jenga at a local convention very soon.
Oh, yay!
Mm-hmm. But the one that's knocking on the door, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, is Parcelli.
Who makes it? Here, spell it first.
Parsely. Your husband has run a few games of this.
Parsley.
There you go.
Parsley, so.
See, I thought it was parsley too, but like with the E being before the L, that's what throws me off.
So the reason it's called parsley is not because of the vegetable; it is because it is about a computer parsing your language. Parsley. And yes, you can blame my husband for a whole lot of things.
Yes, but there is in the core rule book that you can get online. There is an adventure called Spooky Manor, which is excellent. There's another one called Z Ward that I don't like as much as I like Spooky Manor, but still, it's a very unique way of doing horror.
Yeah, so I like that one in particular. I think you've got a great point about how that can be tension building. Because the way you play the Parsley games is that you get a group of people and each person gets one action they can do as you go around the table. And it creates for some hilarious situations. Like at one point, my friend uttered the sentence, "Use axe on fish." But it can also build tension like, oh, you've only got a couple of saves. Should we save here? It's very limited resources in terms of time, in terms of execution. Yeah, I think Spooky Manor would be a great candidate for a great spooky game to play.
And there's always that fear of losing everything. Like if you've made a lot of progress and all of a sudden you just do the wrong thing in the wrong room and you go all the way back to wherever the last place you quote unquote saved was, if you even remembered to do it at all.
I remember when we played a game like that on Facebook, remember?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about.
Oh, it is? Okay. That was a lot of fun. I would absolutely do that again.
Yeah,
I'm actually running one of those games on the Casters Guild Discord right now. It's not one of the horror ones, but
I see you have a Parsley Games channel.
Yeah, you can go in and enter command at any time. Yeah, you've reset it, so it's at the very beginning of Action Castle 1.
I love Action Castle 1. Okay. Sorry, I love everything. I think everything's exciting.
Yeah, I've got my own set of rules for that server. That it's at like the very beginning of the server about like no one's allowed to make double commands. Like you have to wait for somebody else to play if you've played last and things like that. But yeah, if what we've been talking about sounds interesting, come check out our Discord on their Parsley Games channel.
Nice.
If you guys actually can make it through Action Castle, maybe I'll run one of the horror ones.
Ooh, so spooks.
Fine. Can we do a round of games that are knocking on our door?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because now it's opened the door. I'm like, okay, I can talk about these other ones that are getting me real excited. Oxenfree. You never heard. I played it. I streamed it once when I was doing Extra Life. Definitely go check it out. What can I liken it to? It definitely has like dialogue choices. So the setting is that you are basically a group of kids that are going to an island that it's kind of like a small village island. It's closing at the end of the day. So you're kind of getting there late at night. You kind of break into their beach setting. So basically, you're trying to have like a beach party. And so someone has bought some special brownies. So one of them is getting high on the brownies, while the others are just drinking, teenage stuff, carrying on. And they go into a spooky cave. And there is this old folklore that if you bring an old AM/FM radio into the cave, that you can basically tune it to the right channel and commune with the spirits. So the game centers around the protagonist and their radio, because you can use the radio essentially to basically do puzzles, unlock doors to a parallel world. And the whole game centers around that when you used the radio in the cave, that you opened up a parallel door and let some sort of ghostly entity through. You don't exactly understand it. You don't know what happened, but that's when things just kind of go crazy and sideways. Your friends, some of them start to become possessed. Yeah, it's fun. It definitely has a lot of great music to it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and they're going to make a second one, and I'm bummed because the second one isn't coming out in time for Halloween. I think it's now been pushed to 2023. Yeah, so that definitely is knocking at my heart's door. The Outlast series, 1 and 2. That's another survival horror game. Are you familiar with it at all?
I'm vaguely familiar. I haven't had a chance to play, so.
Okay. I thought maybe Ryan might have.
I've seen a few YouTubers play it.
Okay. Yeah, that is pretty terrifying. Where it's a very interesting mechanic too, because the game is constantly in the dark. The only way that you're able to really see around it is via a camera that you have that has a night vision mode to it, but you have a limited amount of battery.
I have heard of that one. Okay.
Okay, cool. The first game takes place in an insane asylum. You trying to escape an insane asylum. The second game takes place, I think it's a village. It's been a long time since I played them. But just you in the dark with a bunch of crazy people, and all you can do is, and you can't use your camera constantly because you have limited batteries, so you've got to pick and choose when you're using the camera to look around and when you're putting it down and just kind of groping through the dark, trying to figure out where you need to go. Meanwhile, all of the crazy people can see and hear perfectly fine, and if they catch you, then you're dead.
Fascinating.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. A game I played recently, I don't know if I would say... Oh, well, actually, before I bring that one up, Inscription. That was another really, really fun game. And it's surprising, too, because you think that the game all centers around you in the hut playing this tabletop RPG with a very mysterious GM. But then it kind of suddenly branches off into now you're in an 8-bit world and playing card-based games. And it has such a variety to it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope they make more.
It takes fascinating turns, and yeah, I would agree that it's in the horror genre because there's one point where you're fighting for your soul and you're trapped in a closet and
If you haven't played the game, if you're listening to this and you haven't played the game, do yourself a favor and play it blind.
Absolutely.
Don't go watch a streamer play it first. Don't go watch a bunch of reviews. It's a lot like Doki Doki Literature Club in that way. It loses a lot of what it is if you know what you're getting into. So let those twists and surprises come at you naturally rather than ruining it for yourself.
So
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Super good.
Another game I finished recently, I don't know if it's considered my favorite, but I think it's one I think deserves a shout out. It's called The Coma 2, Vicious Sisters. It's a setting of you're in a Korean high school where...
K-horror, all right.
Yeah. And basically speaking, they're all there late at night. They're doing like study sessions, like school is ending and whatnot, and there's supposed to be like a super blood moon that's going to be coming up in the middle of the night. And when it does, you kind of get spirited away into this monstrous parallel world.
I love that Ghibli film.
Yeah, where Vicious Sister, who has like these massive long claws, it basically looks like your teacher, but she's like has hair draped all over her face, and she's got long bloody claws, and she's coming after you. It's another one of those survival horror kind of games where you're just running for your life and you can't stop her. All you can do basically is run away from her and hide. And when you're hiding too, you do like a quick time event where you have to push up and down in order to stay hidden. And if you mess it up, then she discovers you. And it's a one-shot kill too. Like if she catches you, you're dead. There's no health. Yeah. Yeah, you do get like a mace item that you can like push her away once, but once you're out of your mace, then sorry, Charlie, run away. It's not a hard game. It depends on the kind of person you are. Like if you're kind of person like that dives into the mechanics of the game and really wants to understand the game, then it can be kind of easy to dodge her, and she becomes more of an annoyance than anything. But for me, I'm easily amused, and I don't try to dissect video games like that. So.
So
Yes.
one of the things we've explored when we were talking about horror is how much the game depends on the person who's playing to panic. And so you and we panic. That's part of what makes it fun.
Uh-huh.
A lot of times I'll hit a frustration wall because my brain stays in panic mode and I can't think about the mechanics that are at play and how simple the solution would be if I just didn't panic. And so one of the games that I played on my horror stream, but I don't really count it as horror, was the recent Prey, the one with the mimicky stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things I took home from that was trigger discipline. Because I didn't have it at first, and that made that game very hard. But I made a point of taking a second and going, okay, I have to shoot. And then trigger discipline came. The enemies became much simpler. The game moved much faster. There were still scary parts, but it wasn't nearly as terrifying because it couldn't rely on me panicking. It couldn't rely on me anticipating the horror. And so, like, there are a couple of games that are like that, where they rely on you panicking to make, not necessarily to take up any slack, but to enhance the experience, to make the game harder than it mechanically is. It's like Fatal Frame. If you're just like, I'm just taking pictures of ghosts, whatever.
Yep.
If you're just like, whoop, click, it's really not that difficult. But if you're like, where is the ghost? Where is the ghost? Oh God! You're freaking out.
You're not sure what buttons to pick, and you're centered within the camera too. So if you're not aiming in the right place, you're totally gonna
you're toast. And I think I think it's really good if they don't rely too much on the player panicking. I think it's a very legitimate approach to making games, to making horror games, because that's the point. It's to have the person scared while they're playing. Mm-hmm. But you can't reasonably rely on that to be your only and or best horror mechanic. So, for example, I was playing through Siren Blood Curse, because the first one, Siren Blood Curse mostly relies on you panicking because it is a confusing game. It is confusing, and that adds to the horror, because it involves sight jacking, and it splits your screen, and then if the enemy sights you, it automatically splits your screen, and it makes you sort of go, okay, well, what am I looking at? What am I doing? But mechanically, it's extremely simple. And it's still effective, but I kind of feel like the player panicking should be a tool in the toolbox, but not the only tool,
So, TJ, you talked about a lot of horror games that are knocking at the door to becoming your new favorites. Do you have any TTRPG horror games that are knocking at the door to becoming your favorites?
Like I said, Dracula and Betrayal are kind of going back and forth with each other pretty frequently.
So to you, our listener, TJ might not have too many that are knocking at the door, but if you do, you should check out Geeky Clean to get some new dice. Our affiliate Geeky Clean, who are proud to present their monthly Dice Bomb subscription box, the ultimate dice goblin enabling service. If you sign up now, the first Dice Bomb you will receive will be November's pumpkin spice scented bath bomb with autumn themed resin dice inside. And then each month you will receive a carefully curated Dice Bomb complete with a set of premium resin dice for your TTRP collection. Get 10% off with our link or discount code Guild Decree.
See, so you did your video game, TTRPG. What about board game? Or was that the board game?
I was just gonna say things that are knocking on my heart in general. 'Cause I don't really have too many board games. Having kids don't have as much time to play board games, unfortunately.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Maybe when they get a little older in teenage years and they can be more engaged in tabletop games. Now it's more about Candyland and Ticket to Ride and that kind of stuff.
It's still good. I played that shit when I was
still
younger.
very good.
So, okay, stuff that was knocking on my door. For video games, there hasn't been one that's really tried to knock the medium off its pedestal. But again, for me, the medium had some very personal story elements that really clicked with me. And I think personal resonance is a way to go for a good video game creation. But for board games, funny thing, we picked up one called Escape the Dark Castle. And it's a board game, but it's basically a self-contained card game. You have characters that are trying to escape the dark castle, and it's a little black comedy, but it's also like genuinely terrifying because you are normal ass people. You are not the hero. You are like the village drunk, or a scholar who got captured.
Always the best protagonists. Just your average people.
Just average, utterly average people. And the art for it is lovely and dark. The concept is that like it's entirely random up until the boss card, but it's entirely random how you get through the castle. It's quick, it's easy, and it's really good at tension building. It's just like, okay, well, you have limited stats, you have limited hit points. You can only one person per round of combat can gain 1 hit point back. And eventually you have to fight a big bad like a sorceress or a lich or, and they're like, I'm a regular ass person. The best I have is half a shiv from the kitchen. What do I do? Better fucking live. So that one's a strong contender. And then as far as role-playing games, it's not top of the line for playing, but it is the best White Wolf supplement ever. And that's Wraith. Wraith the Oblivion is it was supposed to be a separate game. I don't count it as a separate game. It was based on an antagonistic relationship between all of the players. That's not fun. But all of the material there, primo supplement material. Magical, love it. Dark, scary, depressing, tragic. Perfect for that kind of stuff. So I use it for all my White Wolf games for Dark Umbral travel. If I'm running a mage game, you better believe you're going to meet some Hellraiser people who want to eat your soul. You're playing a Changeling game, you're going to have to deal with a very sad ghost. You're playing a werewolf game, it turns out the spirit that was helping you at the cairn is actually an extremely vengeful deer spirit. It's the maddest deer you've ever met.
So, did you say that Wraith the Oblivion is your tabletop knocking at your door? Or
so tabletop.
Okay, because I was I was Googling around to take a look at it, and I found on Steam there is something called Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife that is apparently a VR horror game. Which looks really interesting. I'm watching a little bit of it. No? Okay.
I haven't played it yet. I have not heard people come knocking at my door going, "You've got to play this game."
Okay.
So we'll see. If you play it, I'll watch.
Maybe. I don't know.
It's tough. Like the material is tough.
Horror in VR feels like it takes a completely different turn. Like some things, there was something called Dread Halls that I played one time in a VR. If I had just played it as on a normal TV screen, I would have been bored out of my mind. But because I was in a VR headset playing it, it took a completely different feel to it. I felt lost. I felt like I was being stalked by the monsters, and I actually had to take the headset off and take a breather because I couldn't take it anymore. I still finished it because, by golly, I was going to finish that game, but it was nuts. In the last charity stream that I did for St. Jude, we played Five Nights at Freddy's. I think it's Help Wanted is the VR
Help Wanted,
version.
yeah.
Yeah, and they had they had a Halloween DLC to it with a couple of different Halloween themed video games, which was a lot of fun. It was definitely scary. Not the scariest thing I've ever. Ironically, Dread Halls I felt was more scary, but I still was pretty scared in different places and had a lot of fun. There's one where you're in a corn maze with Foxy, who's on fire, who's stalking you. Yeah. Another one where you're going up to Freddy's house for trick or treat, and you have to knock on the door, and you've got to be able to put on the right mask for the person that's going to open the door and answer it. So you're kind of looking through the windows and seeing who's coming to the door. Yeah, you have to look. and be like, okay, I think it's Balloon Boy. All right, I'm gonna put on Balloon Boy's mask, and it like slowly opens the door, and all you can see is black, and you're like, did I guess it right? And then you get jump scared, and you're just like, no, I'm gonna do it again.
So I need to revise my earlier statement. There is a game that is knocking on the door for good horror, Labyrinthine. Labyrinthine is a 4-player, basically escape room, but you're working as techs for said escape room. You're like, oh man, there's something wrong. We have to go fix this. We have to go fix this corn maze. We have to go fix this. Well, so at one point you're like, oh, corn maze, I can do this. That's fine. Oh, there's a haunted house in the swamp. That's fine. Then you go to a straight up dungeon where there's the fucking butcher from Diablo 1 just hunting you. And I'm like, this isn't a problem with the corn maze, kids. At one point, my friend and I were so nervous. We were so scared about playing that our other 2 friends were fucking off. They were trying to find the parts of the puzzle, and my friend and I were standing in the only safe corner, and we were making little circles with our glow sticks because we were like, we have infinite glow sticks. We're gonna make art with the glow sticks because we don't want to engage with this game anymore. It's too scary. 2 spoops for me. 2 spoops. Can't do it.
It's such a cool concept for a game. Like,
oh yeah,
you're the staff for the escape room. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Long.
They just added more to it, too. I can't remember if it's a full game yet, but we did early access for a while, and we really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it looks like it's still in early access. I can see it here in Steam.
Yeah, so they're still adding more to it, but like more character customization and all that fun stuff. But it's really fun. There's a swamp level that I really enjoyed, because there's a killer gator coming for you, and I love killer gator stories. I think it's great. I think killer gator stories are terrific. But yeah, so Labyrinthine is knocking at the door for me. We've played. Oh, what is the other one? Not Paranormal. What is the one where you're hunting ghosts?
Phasmophobia.
Phasmophobia. That one's fun. I wouldn't call it. We don't get scared by it because my friends and I play it real stupid.
Yeah.
So there's the point where you learn the name of the ghost, and you only want to summon it. If you say its name, it'll come and get you. So my friend decided to see how well that mechanic worked and just started saying the person's name. You know, like Gregory. Hey, Gregory. Hey, Gregory. It went on for like 10 minutes and nothing happened. We're like, I guess that mechanic doesn't work. Motherfucker forgot to hit the push to talk button. So he's standing there like, this mechanic doesn't work. And he's just going, Gregory,
that mechanic
works. Gregory. And then finally we're like, dude, don't you have to hit a button? Click.
Go off.
Oh, it was good.
That's
it was really good. But at that point, it's comedy. Like for us, that was low-level Ghostbusters, which
Yeah, Phasmophobia I think is another one of those ones where if you play it a bunch, like it takes all the fear out of it. Once you've solved that game and the quote-unquote correct way to play it, like I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna throw down this. How does it react? Okay, I know it's this ghost. Now this is how it's. It gets to a point where if you play it a bunch, you can get too good at it for it to be scary.
Yeah, it becomes familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when stuff becomes familiar, it no longer becomes frightening. However, there is an exception to that. So, my theory is that horror can be completely unfamiliar or uncomfortably familiar. So, if you take, for example, like a piece of art, so like horror art, like if you take Slenderman, depictions of Slenderman, not really seeing much, you know, no face, vague shape in the woods, terrifying. Ugh. Then you take something like the horror mangaka Junji Ito. Beautiful work. Incredibly detailed.
Mm-hmm.
So detailed you cannot escape it. There's no ignoring the wrinkles around somebody's eyes as they stare deeply into yours. You know, there's no ignoring the goo dripping from somebody's face. And it's just
more like the uncanny in that way, where it looks perfectly normal, except it's just slightly off.
Yeah, and like the more detail you get, the worse it gets. Like the worse that you're like, the more you're repulsed, and I love that. I think that's wonderful. I could just keep going. Like I got tons of shit to talk about. Like
I think that new horror game that came out not that long ago, The Mortuary Assistant, kind of touches on that.
Good.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of Let's Players play it, and that looks really terrifying. I don't know if it would hit with me as anymore because I've seen all the spooks, and without those jump scare elements, it's probably not going to be as terrifying for me. What?
part that's unsettling is the actual mortuary work.
Yeah.
So in the mortuary assistant, you do actual mortuary assistant stuff. You do things like start the autopsy, which is the big incision that you do across somebody. Because this is back in the 90s before a lot of our stuff got modernized. And you do an embalming process. And I have thoughts and feelings on embalming. However, the process itself is fascinating. Like giant needles you have to jam into somebody's thoracic cavity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you have to pump and drain them. You have to put fluids into them, you know, or like putting the little caps on their eyeballs to keep their eyes shut when they're going to be in their wake. Or the other one that's kind of fun is the mouth closer. I don't remember what it's called, but if you watch Ask a Mortician, she'll go over it for you. Mm-hmm. Where you basically have a hook. It goes into your upper jaw, comes down. You do that on both sides, and you have this clamp that sort of on both sides. You sort of clamp it shut, and it's really unsettling to have to do on a body.
And the mortuary assistant, when you're doing all of that stuff, the camera is really zoomed in, really close, right on the corpse's face, and you get into that uncanny valley where like the graphics are pretty good, but like they're definitely not perfectly human. So you have to spend a large amount of time, like, you know, 2 inches away from this face that isn't quite right. So yeah,
hopefully it won't become possessed and suddenly sit up and look at you, or open its eyes, or
yells horrible things at you,
and they will.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, really, really horrid stuff. But so like for me, mortuary assistant, demon possession, embalming,
So there's another game that got really popular recently. I don't know if it classifies as a horror game, but it's definitely horror adjacent. Cult of the Lamb. I don't know if you've had the chance to play it, but Cult of the Lamb has gathered its own cult following on Twitch because it has this awesome Twitch integration where you can name your cult followers after your Twitch followers. And they can actually like spend channel points to your cult totem, which like sacrifices and goes toward your upgrades in game. So like when you get a new follower in your cult, like a new little animal in your cult, you can start the follower raffle, and like something pops up on all your follower screens that says, "Do you want to enter the follower raffle?" And then one of them gets chosen to be that cult follower in game, and then they get to design the little animal, decide what animal they want to be, how they look, and then they're just one of your cult followers throughout the game to possibly be sacrificed later.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
That's so great. I'm assuming it's only for PC because you have to be able to integrate.
So for the Twitch integration, it's only PC, but the game itself is available everywhere. It's PlayStation, Xbox, Switch. Yeah. And also not just for the Twitch integration, like if you like horror, I guess, it's just a fun game, just all around. It's kind of like a Stardew Valley meets Binding of Isaac.
Oh, you have hit 2 of my buttons, sir. 2 of my buttons.
Because you get to manage your cult, which is very Stardew Valley-esque. It's that very resource management, manage your farm kind of thing. And then you go out to gather more things for your cult and into these dungeons, and all the dungeons are randomly generated, very Binding of Isaac style. Mm-hmm. So it's an excellent game. I've actually been playing it with my wife because I can't stand resource management. And she's no good at like action style dungeon crawlers. So she handles the management, and like when it's time to go out, she hands the controller to me and I go do that. So it's been a lot of fun.
Speaking of your wife, has she played the best vampire game series ever?
Are you talking about Legacy of Kain?
Yeah, goddamn right I am. Yeah, goddamn right. I was showing off my tattoo off podcast before.
She hasn't, but you have her very intrigued.
Okay, good.
Right now, she likes to play video games one at a time, and she is a completionist at heart, so she will not stop playing a video game until she has everything. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I got her hooked on Skyrim.
Oh,
So
well,
been there
it
a
was
while.
nice knowing your wife.
it was like
Yeah,
it was
seriously.
just a few months ago she finally completed everything that Skyrim has to offer between like
Yeah,
three
that was
different
possible.
characters. Yeah. But now I finally bought her a Switch because Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are coming out and we're going to play it together. So I bought her a Switch, and when I bought her Switch at the game store that I went to, they had a little collector's edition on clearance for some game I had never heard of. Something about the Demon King. But it's like this cutesy little thing, like the boy and the Demon King, or the hero and the Demon King, or something like that. And it's basically about you play like the child of a hero, and you're being raised by the dragon that the hero used to fight. And yeah, she's been hooked on that right now.
Love
So
it.
she probably won't play anything else until she's done that.
Gotcha. Well, thinking of actually thinking about vampire games in general, I think it's funny that like all the vampire games I can think of don't actually hit the horror button. They all hit the gothic button of like, ooh, the set dressing is very spook. It's very, very off-putting. Blood and skulls and absolutely my entire aesthetic. But I think it's interesting that like the only vampire property I can think of that counts as horror is not about the vampire itself. And that is Midnight Mass. Because it is about... So, if you haven't seen Midnight Mass, you are absolutely in for a treat, and I just kind of spoiled it for you. But all the other vampire media I can think of has been, like, action? Like, vampire games in particular, just action. Castlevania, the Legacy of Kain series that I mentioned, like...
Devil May Cry.
Gothic. Devil May Cry, like...
There's one that might qualify as horror, and I think it might just be called Vampire.
Yes, with
You play a doctor who's also a vampire, and then you have to choose who you're going to eat and who you're going to save.
Yeah, that leans harder into the horror aspect for sure. I saw that played through all the way through on stream, and it's good. I think it counts. I would count that as gothic, but I wouldn't count it as horror. I think so. If you've seen the movie Crimson Peak.
Oh, and
If
also
you haven't-
before we get too far away from it, the game my wife was playing, not a horror game, but I found the title. It's The Cruel King and the Great Hero.
Oh, might play that.
It's
actually.
it's very cute, and like the art's very Ghibli-esque.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh, that is cute looking. I just pulled it up in Nintendo store. Like the dragon's got a crown, and the kid, he's got like a pan on his head, and he's got a little branch he's holding. It looks like he's playing pretend in this mythical world. Oh wow, that is adorbs.
My cold black heart. That's adorable. Well, so that's actually something I'd like to touch on, and particularly with like Cult of the Lamb. What do you guys think of the cute horror aspect? Do you think it can still be scary, or do you think the cuteness sort of overrides it all?
It's difficult for me to say because like I find it difficult to find just about anything when it comes to media actually scary. I think there's probably somebody out there who thinks it's scary. I think there's probably somebody out there who finds it scary because it's cute. Where if it weren't cute, that like it wouldn't be scary for them, but just the fact that like the cuteness lulls them into a sense of security, and then all of a sudden, boom, horror. I'm sure that does extra for them. But I mean, there's also, just because you're a horror fan doesn't necessarily mean something needs to scare you. Like when it comes to games like Cult of the Lamb, where you got this cute little lamb and all these cute little cult followers and stuff like that, like your horror fan is going to appreciate that more than your average person, be it scary or not. Like they find the fact that these cute little characters are doing something so twisted and maybe leaking blood from their eyes, they find that way more adorable than if it was just your standard cute little stuffed animal.
I think that's fair. Yeah, like thinking of like Cult of the Lamb versus Stardew Valley. Although personally, I think there are parts of Stardew Valley that are a little horrifying, especially if you mess one kind of gift up, like some of the villagers will never speak to you again. That's social awkwardness. That's horrifying. But yeah, I think like cute and scary has always been around, but I think it's really having a nice renaissance lately. Because so Binding of Isaac, for me, pushes that cute boundary into the disgusting boundary.
That's
don't
more
get me
of a
wrong.
gore horror in a way.
Mhm.
Yeah, and like don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, I love good gory shit.
Yeah.
But it definitely pushes that cute boundary into disgusting horror.
Mhm.
Cult of the
Whereas
Lamb will
Cult-
do that too.
Yeah,
Like with the boss fights and stuff. Yeah.
Oh,
like
yeah,
the
yeah,
bosses
yeah.
are very grotesque.
I was thinking like cute can sometimes lead you into false sense of security, like Doki Doki Literature Club. You think it's a cute dating simulator where you're trying to win the hearts of these girls, and then it just takes a vast turn all of a sudden, and you're like, oh, these girls are psychos.
And whether
Wait,
it's scary,
what's going-
whether it's scary or not, whether it's actually horror or not, it definitely has like a very unique audience. Like during season 1, Baron, you were talking about how you're not goth, but you're goth adjacent. So
that means you're goth now. I'm sorry.
He is wearing black.
You got your nail polish on, baby.
Right.
so that being goth adjacent probably puts you in a unique position where I also know you are a fan of the cozy games like Stardew Valley, where if a game like Cult of the Lamb comes along that is a cozy game but also has its nice little goth adjacent aesthetic, makes it more likely for you to like that game.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I will say, I kind of had that feeling with Don't Starve together as well, and I just hated that game.
I don't
Yeah.
like Don't Starve.
That was a
either. I mean, it's
mechanics
great
thing
game,
for you
but I
though,
just-
right?
But it's
I'm a-
survival.
It's
But
so
I'm with Rick.
hard, I
don't
think.
like the resource management. That's why I don't play the Stardew Valley kind of video games and the farming simulator kind of games. I want to go off and explore. I don't want to be stuck in one place, building out resources. So yeah, I also didn't like Don't Starve. I'm right there with you. I'm afraid.
Right. But, I mean, I'm definitely going to give the Cult of the Lamb a chance. But I will also, just not even in games, I should say, I'll reference a cartoon that kind of hits, I think, exactly cute and horror at the same time. Over the Garden Wall.
Ah, okay.
Over the Garden Wall, it is definitely cute, and it's got that cartoony feel, but then there are just parts where it's just, you feel so uneasy. It kind of hits you in a different spot. Like the pumpkin people, that was creepy.
Kind of like a more modern Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Oh yeah, and you know what? Courage the Cowardly Dog was scary too.
Mm-hmm.
The Pharaoh, come on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But yeah, and I think if cartoons hit that, I definitely know games can hit that. Well, I mean, weren't you just you were just talking about Scooby Doo just at the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I would have to say too that we also have to look at the time we're living in too. What used to be horror, what used to be terrifying to people, we watch now on Mystery Science Theater 3000.
That reminds me.
And
We
games that
finally-
weren't horror games before are horror games now, like Pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
We finally played through Night Trap.
Oh,
Game-
I don't know what that one is.
That forced the invention of the ESRB because of a very saucy and scary scene where a lady in her negligee gets stabbed kind of in the neck for her blood.
mm-hmm.
We played through the whole damn thing. And
It's an interactive movie.
I'm
looking it up now.
I'm so sorry that you played through that whole thing.
we looked up a guide. And like I had to yell out times and which room to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And like we bopped through it. And man, it
It's
is
rough.
an MST3K game.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, it's so good. It's good in that if you love cheesy movies and laughing at them at the same time, because like the film that they made is not good,
Mm-mm.
but they worked at it. It is earnest in its creation, and it is worth that. And I think it's hysterical that between that and Mortal Kombat, obviously Mortal Kombat was the drive for the creation of the ESRB.
Yeah, and people obviously thought it was scary enough and horrifying enough and bad enough
less
to
about scary.
create that. Yeah.
It was more about the lady in the negligee. So, like, I'm not a fan of someone declaring something, should be censored and whatnot. But I am grateful for the ESRB. I think it makes things a lot simpler for
Sure.
parents or guardians to be like, that's rated T for teen, honey. Can we get something else? There's always going to be the fight of, Jeffrey's got it. Why can't I have it? Well, because I'm not Jeffrey's mom. I'm your mom. Go,
I can tell you,
another
as
game.
someone who worked at a game store, that 99% of parents don't look at that at all.
Fair. And like,
But it
I
is
think-
good for that 1%.
I think it is. I think it's a useful tool. I don't think it should be your only tool.
Yeah.
And
And even a lot of the
to-
parents who did look, like when they'd come in and little Timmy tried to, buy Grand Theft Auto or Call of Duty, and I said you had to have your parent with you, and the parent came in, usually the only question was, is there any nudity in this game? And if the answer was no, they bought it anyway. So
Isn't that fascinating?
Mhm.
Isn't that fascinating that we're more afraid of a pair of nipples than we are of somebody getting their head blown off?
Yep, because honestly, and like, I forget which Call of Duty game it was, but like there was one that was really popular. Of course, there's one every year that's popular, of
course,
because it's the new one. But the new one that had come out, there was literally a scene where you sat down in front of one of your squad mates while the enemy forced you to play Russian roulette with each other, and you watched your squad mate like shoot themselves in the head in the cutscene. And I would describe that to the parent. And I'd be like, this scene exists in this game. And they'd be cool with their 6-year-old playing it as long as it didn't have nudity.
Wow.
Brutal.
Raising my kid, I've always been the opposite. I'm definitely like what you just said. We're all afraid of a nipple, but violence is okay. It's like, whatever. Nudity is nudity, but
we have bodies.
Hardcore violence, you need to wait until you are mentally prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you're not mentally prepared for nudity, you shouldn't take a shower.
Right.
What makes you think I have? The real horror.
I don't think I want to come over anymore. Yeah, and it's interesting because you'll see that played up in horror genres because in movies, you'll have the very intense scene where you'll have somebody who's very vulnerable. It works because that person is vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's taking a shower. Depending on how they handle the camera work, it could be very vulnerable or very discomforting because of the American discomfort with nudity and sexuality. Good horror films, I would argue, focus on the vulnerability. Annoying horror films focus on the sexual stuff because, like,
right.
I'm sorry, I'm not scared of sex. I think it's great. It's pretty fabulous. It keeps the human race going.
10
2 thumbs
10.
up.
We'll do again.
10 out. We know you've already done it twice. But it's common in American-based horror stuff and to weaponize that sexuality as a thing to be afraid of, rather than the vulnerability that comes with it, which is sort of a side character, but it really should be the focus of, like, this person is naked, not nude. And so to clarify the definition there, naked is like you've been stripped down and shoved into the woods with nothing but your wits to save you. Nude is someone slowly taking off their clothes to get into the shower. Nude is to be objectified, to be observed, to be judged. Naked is
focus on the sexuality aspect of it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Naked is ya fucked. Not in the good way. Like, and so I think one of the things I would love to see in some horror properties is more of a focus on that vulnerability while being like, I'm not saying don't put naked people in horror, like, obviously, but like use that as vulnerability, use that as a way to be like, hey, this person has a body, you have a body, you could be in this situation. This is not about starlet du jour with double D's that are barely covered by a lace bra. This is about, you can still use starlet du jour. You can use, I don't know, pick a name. But she's naked. She's helpless.
That's interesting, because that actually reminds me of a game I played recently called Tormented Souls. I think actually Ryan played it once before. I
probably did.
think it was one of his streams that I saw, and I was like, oh, that looks really good. But it has a particular scene. So it's very, very Resident Evil inspired. it's a girl in a mansion. Monster is coming after her, and she has to escape.
And she almost became a Jill sandwich.
Yeah, she almost. Well, that didn't actually have a scene where the ceiling tried to. No, actually, it was the walls, wasn't it? It was the walls that were coming
Something
down.
like that. Yeah. No, I think it was the
in
elevator.
Resident Evil, it was the ceiling because it's like whether or not you get the shotgun.
But in the beginning of the game, when she first goes in, someone hits her from behind. She's knocked out unconscious. She wakes up in basically like a restroom that's become a makeshift hospital room of some sort. She's in a bathtub, completely naked, and the tub has been filled, and she's on a respirator with a tube down her throat. So she just kind of jarringly becomes awake. She's struggling to breathe. You can see her breasts in full view, and she's like struggling to pull out the pipe that's been shoved down her throat. And she gets out of the bathtub, and she's like half covering herself. She's naked, but I thought it was on the sexual side of things, but now that you're describing it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe that is more playing to the vulnerability aspect of it, because could be that. Yeah,
Would it have had the same effect if you hadn't seen her breasts?
I think so, for me.
Yeah. But so, like, and again, it's not a black or white thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
there's a certain point where is it more about the breasts, or is it more about her chest heaving because she's trying to catch her breath? It was more about her chest
heaving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely played up that aspect of it, that she was like, crap, I'm struggling to breathe, I don't know what's going on, that it was playing up the confusion, the vulnerability, the dark and atmospheric stuff happening.
And that does sound terrifying, by the way.
Yeah. I've never been on a respirator myself, but the idea of having a tube all the way down your throat, no thank you. I hope I never have to experience that.
Yeah, knock on wood, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like, so, speaking as a femme-presenting cis woman, to throw some terms out there, the risk... There's always a risk in presenting the females as vulnerable, female presenters as vulnerable in horror content, because it's very common and easy to sexualize what is going. Because there's a trend in comics where women in particular are sexualized in defeat, and it's really gross. Like long story short, like if you see a female superhero defeated, take a look at the panel where she's laying on the ground. That is not how people lay on the ground when they've had the shit kicked out of them. That is how somebody lays on the ground when they're like, oh, I've fallen and I can't get up. Oh, look at the curve of my hip and the turn of my thigh. Like, it's creepy and it's weird. Yeah. And it's common in the horror genre, too, where it's like, oh, I've twisted my ankle. Like, who twists their ankle like that? Yeah. I roll my ankle all the time and I keep running. Especially if I'm a chicken shit running from something I heard in the woods. By the way, I work in the woods a lot. I run away a lot. I'm a big fucking scared kid. And there's always a line that could have been crossed. So, like, arguably, again, I will never be for censorship, but arguably, if that scene works and you don't see her breasts, then I think it's a good scene. I think including her breasts is something that you could go either way about. But, like, I think you guys made a great point about, like, it's about her not being able to breathe.
Yeah, and, like, yeah. It didn't feel like it was playing that up. The more I think about it, it felt like it was more emphasizing the fact that she wasn't able to breathe. I mean, if she had been covered up, it would have been like, why? Like, it would have lost me.
Like,
it's realism. Yeah, because she was supposed to be stripped naked. She's in a bathtub. You don't wear clothes in the bathtub.
Naked, not nude. Yeah. Ha 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 ha. To touch on another point, Fatal Frame 5, I did not get into because, boy, of all the boobs. I love boobs. I think they're great.
Uh-huh.
But the fact that they emphasize... So here's a point of sexualization versus being naked. Nudity versus nakedness. You don't have to put jiggle physics on the boobs of the ghosts, guys. You really don't. That's what they did. Tecmo made all the Fatal Frame games.
Oh, well, there you go. You said it right there. Tecmo.
Exactly. And they're just like, oh, Dead or Alive breast physics. Let's put those in here. Make those ghosts sexy. I'm like, guys.
They're ghosts. They're floating. They don't actually have gravity applying.
Like, physics don't apply to them.
They didn't. They still had the boobs, like, floating sexily. I'm like, guys, please.
Wow.
Can we please? Like, I get that, like, maybe their clothes are torn, maybe things are hanging differently, but that's not what boobs look like without a bra. It's not what they look like without a bra. It's not how they function without a bra. It's not how they function at all, ever. I have spent a lot of money on bras. They're very good bras. Never have they looked that good.
It's been too long since I played that particular Fatal Frame.
I thought it was been too long since you wore a bra.
Oh, well, I mean,
no judgment.
On days I don't take showers, then I...
I knew it. I'm coming to your house again.
I don't think I've ever once in my life seen two breasts on the same woman move in two different directions while they were running or jumping or doing anything else. Like, I've never seen them in two different directions.
Yeah, they don't do that.
Mm-mm.
It's not a thing that happens. Like, I'm trying to... How would you...
You'd have to intentionally move them that way yourself.
Right, you'd have to have the original Wonder Bra, the hands, you know. Spooky boobs, ooh. Maybe that's what makes them spooky. Woo!
Mm-hmm. Boobs!
A bosom!
I call them boobs for a reason.
Boobies. I'm sorry, I totally derailed the conversation.
No, I mean, like, it's nudity and nakedness have been a part of the horror genre for as long as the horror genre has been a thing. Mm-hmm. And I think they make excellent commentary on it in my favorite horror movie, Cabin in the Woods. Where, like, you know, they're getting ready for the quote-unquote sex scene, and, like, the new guy, like, comments on it. It's like, do we really have to focus the camera on this? And the two guys are like, yeah, it's what the client wants. Like, you gotta have it.
I loved that movie for the joke that the Japanese team never failed.
Yep.
Because that was the difference between J-horror and American horror, is that Japanese horror you can't actually escape.
Yep.
Except apparently that one time. So, I love that. Tragic. Tragedy.
So, with that, Baron, do you want to put a bow on this one?
Yes. I'm too scared.
Scary bow.
Scary bow. It's all
a
black
bow
and
made of
purple.
flesh.
It's a skull
Franbo.
or something.
Another great video game, Franbo.
So just in time for spooky season, just in time for Halloween. You guys have a lot of options available to you. I think that we covered quite a few games from different platforms that have boobs and may not. Go out, get some stuff. Definitely enjoy yourselves this season. You know, make it cute, make it scary, do what you want. It's your Halloween season.
Kat, TJ, if anybody liked what you had to say and they want to find you anywhere else on the internet, where can they do that?
Well, okay, I'll start. I do streaming 2 to 3 times a week. That's at Scaredy Cat, which I had to intentionally misspell because somebody else who doesn't stream very often took the original spelling. That is, you can find me at Twitch at SKAREDY_KAT. I broadcast on Mondays and Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I also occasionally broadcast on Saturday mornings. Don't really have a time. That's when I do my tarot drawing. You can also find me on Instagram at Caffeine Witch. On Twitter, same handle, Caffeine Witch. I don't post very often, but you'll get, like, nature pictures that I'll tell you about, or, like, bomb-ass selfies. So, yep, I stream horror games on Tuesdays, I stream comfort games on Mondays, and I stream tarot drawing on Saturdays.
Nice. Sounds like a really full schedule.
Yes.
For myself, I have a YouTube channel where I stream various video games. Sometimes I have some horror games that I've streamed for various charity for Extra Life. I've done some with you as well, Rick. And sometimes I have some streams with my family. My wife and I think the last game we streamed was Life is Strange. Life is Strange. It's not the. I think it's the second one.
Before the Storm?
What is it? It might be.
It was Before the Storm.
Two brothers that are escaping.
Oh, no, not that one.
Because there's a more recent one. Anyway.
I know there's Life is Strange, Before the Storm, Strange Colors, and I think one of them is just called Life is Strange 2.
Yeah, I think the one I'm playing right now is Life is Strange 2 because Strange Colors is the more recent one that I have that we haven't gotten to quite just yet. But I want to finish with Life is Strange 2 before we get to that. But I also invite my kids to sometimes stream with me too. We've played Roblox, we've played Mario Party, so it's just a lot of fun. So you can find that under if you Google Night of Shaddai under YouTube, and I will spell that for you. It's KNIGHT, like Knight in Shining Armor, of and Shaddai, SHADDAI. You will be able to find all the videos that I've done.
We will have all those links in the description down below. Maybe even some of the links to some of the games we talked about, especially the harder to find indie TTRPGs. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Casters Guild. Please email us at castersguild@gmail.com. Tell us about some of your favorite horror games. Also find us on all the socials and on our Discord. And November 5th through the 6th, we are doing our yearly 24-hour charity stream. This year we are doing it for CODA, Children's Organ Transplant Association, in honor of Faith's fight. Faith is my niece, who has had her small and large bowel transplanted. She's got a new one. As a matter of fact, it's the day of recording. She had another surgery to finally have it all connected. Still waiting on 100% news from that one, but from what I understand, it went well. But she could still use your help, so make sure to tune into that. We'll have some contests where we're going to give a few things away. I don't know everything that we're going to give away, but one thing for sure that I've nailed down today that we're going to give away is a gelatinous cube Funko Pop. So everyone who donates during the stream will be entered to win that. So once again, thank you very much for tuning into this episode. We will see you in the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Ah! Ah!